and welcome to Let's Talk About It. I am back with a new guest who almost appeared on an earlier episode, but we decided to stick with just one guest at a time. But introducing Robb Valentine.
Hello. Happy Black History Month.
Yes, happy Black History Month. Part of the reason I want to have you on is to talk about being biracial. You're someone who's been in my life for as long as I can remember, and for a long time was the only person I knew that looked kind of like me. So was hoping you could share with people how you came in my life and how you know me and how that kind of came as a decision on your end.
Okay. Well, I think the first time I met you was in Bridgeton.
New Jersey.
Yes, New Jersey. And at that time, your mom was dating my best friend. They dated for a while. And then, of course, like pretty much majority of relationships that we experience towards the end, they went their separate ways. And at that point, I had bonded with you and your mom. And something popped in my head during a conversation with your mom, not really about you, but more about like the end of the relationship. So I was kind of at a point where I was like, I've kind of emotionally invested in these people. So their part of the relationship is over. However, I don't feel like for me, it should be over.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, as I started having a conversation with myself about it, I was like, as I look out of all of Crystal's relatives, Crystal's friends, I was like, wow, there really isn't anyone that I've seen of color. And it had I knew nothing about like your dad or anything at this point. I think at that point I was like, if he is not, I don't want to be another person of color to just come in and like just disappear. So I think I expressed that to your mom. If not during that conversation, because at that point, I'm sure she could care less about.
Yeah, she's like, my boyfriend just broke up with me.
Me wanting to hang around and hang out with you. But I think with me, it was like, it was kind of there. Like I made a commitment, like, like I need to be involved in your life. And then I know later I had the conversation with your mom and she was just like, oh, wow, like, cool, type of thing. But I think it was more important for me and something I never really figured out why it was important, but just something I felt like I needed to do as a person of color, seeing this person, another person of color surrounded by people of non-color type of thing. The PONC? People of non-color. Yeah, because we are the POCs. So I decided at that point, like, I need to definitely be involved with your life from that point to where we are today.
Yeah. And because that was something I never really was ever aware of, being half black, half white and growing up with my white side of my family. And, part of that time was in South Jersey. And then the other part of it was when we lived in Seattle. And I was never even really aware of the fact that most of my friends were white and that I was growing up around people that were white. And then it wasn't until we moved to South Carolina for middle school where I became like hyper aware of my race and experienced many issues with that, which we'll get into. But, I'm also curious for you, we grew up very differently, but I think have both had experiences of racism and of just these moments where we become very aware of our race. And I feel like as people who are biracial, that's really important to acknowledge. Right.
I think for me, like growing up, we kind of grew up, as I look back, like majority of my friends were definitely Caucasian. I don't want to say like I didn't know, like I didn't, a lot of people are like, I didn't know I was black. I want to say being a person of color didn't become negative. Like I didn't start to, because I think for especially young black men or young black boys of color, we go through this phase where we're so cute. Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute. And I think every race goes like boys are cute until a certain age. And I think for young black men, it's a lot, it's really early. And for me, I want to say I was probably, 10 or 11. I was with another family, and we were in Georgetown, walking around.
In D.C.
In D.C., Georgetown, correct. And pretty liberal area. Me and my friend, we separated from his parents, and I wanted to go see The Exorcist stairs because I heard they were there.
The Exorcist stairs?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie The Exorcist?
No, okay. I don't mess around with scary movies.
Well, the house is there. So anyway, I wanted to go see it. We've driven by it, but I wanted to go see it because the movie always.
And you were
freaked me out.
10.
10, yeah. And I remember walking down the street, and I remember seeing this woman walk towards me. I was expecting to be spooked going to the Exorcist stairs, but I could tell I spooked her. And I noticed because she kind of like got out of our way. First, I noticed that she grabbed her purse. Like she secured her purse. It was so obvious. And then she totally like moved into the street to avoid us.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, like I totally didn't even remember going to the Exorcist stairs because it stood with me.
Yeah.
And it's, the rest of the day.
Because it was like, what is that? What am I doing that's causing this woman to react in this way?
Right. And I remember thinking to myself, did I smile? So I went through life, and I remember when we moved to Seattle, how this comes 360 is I would go through life, and if I saw an older white lady or an older white couple, it was, I don't know why or how, but I taught myself just to smile to kind of, so I wouldn't come across threatening.
Yeah.
And I've done that throughout my life self-consciously. It's to the point where I don't even see myself doing it anymore. And then when we first moved to Seattle, I was walking down the street and I smiled at a white lady she wasn't that much older than me. And I remember her like she was like, why are you smiling at me? Like, and I was just like, I could, and it almost kind of had the same feeling, like took me back to that kid. Like I'm smiling at you.
Because I'm trying to let you know I'm not threatening.
Yeah. But for her, it was like, that's kind of freaky. Like, why
she's
are you?
Like, that's a little not normal.
Right. But I was like, I've gone through life and it's actually, people have smiled back at me. And for her, and then I was like, was she, like, she didn't see race? Did she just see like she was
just like, why is this man staring at me?
Right.
Yeah, and smiling at me. Yeah.
Right. And why did it take me like almost 40 or 30 something years for someone to be like, yeah, why are you smiling? Like, why? And then I kind of like, I couldn't go back and have that conversation with her. So I kind of just drew to myself, like, like this woman probably didn't see, I mean, she saw a black person, but she's probably seen many black people. Yeah. And to her, that wasn't an issue. The issue is, why is this dude smiling at me that doesn't know me? Like, it's just, and I realized how freaky that could have been.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, oh my gosh, like everybody, like literally everybody that I've done that to they've just smiled back. Is this the Seattle freeze that everyone talks about?
No,
like,
Seattle freeze doesn't exist.
No, I agree. Even though everyone that I've met that's super nice in Seattle are transplants there. So, but I did walk away thinking like, wow, like maybe this place is a little bit more progressive than a lot of other places that I've been.
Location, I think, definitely plays a big part in terms of the culture and how you're received as a person of color. I mean, like I said, when I was here in Seattle in elementary school, that was never really a thing. Like, I was mostly friends with people who were Caucasian, but then I also still saw other people from different backgrounds around me. Like, one of my best friends, Kaylin, was Filipino, so like I had that, and you just had a different mix of people. And then being in South Carolina, like, race was a really big thing. And it was like, I'm very aware of the fact that I'm black. And it was this interesting dynamic of like, you're too white, or you're not black enough, or just because you're part black, you're all black, and you're just black, and your white doesn't even matter. Or it's like, it was just this pressure to pick a side. And I don't know if that's something you experienced.
For me, I would say I never felt like I had to pick a side. I think for boys, it comes a lot later in life.
Yeah.
Where I don't think in high school most white guys feel threatened unless it's sports. And then back then, if you're a white guy on a sport team, you can hold your own anyway. I think for mixed girls, I think it starts a lot earlier because you have this image, you know, for girls, image is a major thing. And you have kind of both of what society says is pretty. So for the black girl, you know, and I have a mixed daughter who's, you know, as well. And at times my dad will say, you know, like, oh my gosh, her hair is so beautiful. You have such beautiful hair. And I would have to correct him and say, like, Dad, you can't say that. Because what you're saying is everyone that doesn't have hair like her is horrible.
Yeah.
So I see mixed people as like the bridge between the two races. And then so you have like white girls who feel like I don't want to be like, you know, like I wouldn't want to be black, and which I've always found funny because it's like they don't want to be brown, but they tan. And like you have the black girls that are like, you know, I love black and being black, and, you know, and then they'll get their hair straightened or, you know, wavy or curly. So you have this mixed person who has everything that these two groups of people kind of want stereotypically, because there's some people that could care less and they just accept you as you are. But then I think what I used to tell myself to help myself kind of cope was that it's not really about the race. It's about individuals looking at you and realizing that they're jealous of something.
That they're seeing their insecurities reflected in you.
Right.
Yeah.
So like the movie Get Out, you know, like if we
I still haven't seen that. I want to so
then I'm
bad.
not gonna spoil it for you. But there is some points in the movie that are very true that speak on what someone might lack that someone else has. I mean, like girls, I mean, I remember being in the clubs and a pretty girl will walk in and, you know, they'll try to find that one thing that they feel they lack. That's always what they speak on first. So it's a race issue, but I think it's really an individual issue.
Yeah.
However, if you're around predominantly in South Carolina, as you were around white people, of course, you're going to have like mobs.
Yeah.
And I remember your mom calling me like, oh my gosh, they called Taylor the N-word. And I was like, you know what? Like, I've never been an N-word type of person. I'm like, they called her the N-word. Well, that's kind of nice. And she's like, well, not the N-word, Rob, but the word. And I'm like, you know, like nigger, you know, like say it, you know, because, you know, the N-word to me is kind of like, you know, what we teach our kids.
You get away with saying it without actually saying it.
Yeah. For me, I'm like, let's say it. You said nigger because it's a horrible word. And she was like, you know, I want to go to the school. And she, you know, she was ready to get in the car and go down there and be the mom.
I was curious if she ever, because I know she really struggled seeing me struggle with all of that, but I didn't know if she'd ever reached out to you for help with that or like how.
She would call, you know, when we'd catch up, she would
because really you're like her only, she
go
doesn't have any other people of color that are her friends.
Right. And how and that's another thing, like, you know, as people of color, which you'll find, I am not the voice of the people of color. Yeah. You know, I'm going to give you my opinion. And I was like, you do not want to go to school because you don't want to go there. You kind of have to let her figure out how she's going to handle it. Like, you can tell her, like, yeah, this is wrong. It's not right. Maybe these aren't your friends. You be supportive. But you can't fix it for her. Yeah. Because the fixing part.
You can't fix my race.
Yeah, you can't. and you're going to have to learn to cope and figure out your coping mechanisms. So as you go through life, you know, because you don't want to be a 28-year-old woman and then your mom's having to come to your job because so I was like, you kind of have to step back. And then I remember, I'm going to put you out there for a little bit. I remember reading your Facebook page and you was like, I'm half
Are you
nig.
sure this wasn't MySpace at the time?
MySpace, yes.
I think
Excuse
this was
me.
MySpace.
It was MySpace. Yes, it was. And I was like, and I remember reading Half Nig. And I remember reading watching a talk about from Maya Angelou of, you know, like poison, like basically the word nigger is poison. And if you dress it up, if you make it sweeter, you know, if once you consume it, it still kills you, regardless of how we dress it up or define it. So it was funny because I kind of like, you know, and I've always said, like, you're my practice daughter. Like, I wanted to pick up the phone and be like, no, you do not call yourself half nig or whatever.
And how that even came about there was this guy in this band that I was friends with at the time, and we were very flirty, and I think we like had a little bit of a thing. I don't know. He was much older than me, and it probably shouldn't have happened, but he was black, and I don't know if you remember him. He had dreads.
I think so, but yeah.
But yeah, so that was what he called me. He was like, "You're my little half nig," and I didn't know. I was like, he was the only person of color that like I really interacted with down there who was like, you know, someone that I could call a friend. And yeah, that was just kind of what I took on, was like, okay, yeah, like I guess it's like cool. It makes me cool. It makes me like cute. Like, okay, sure. Yeah. Like I'm a half nig. Okay.
Right. But you know now how hopefully but that's your way of, that was your way of coping.
And trying to figure it out, because there was so much pressure of like, pick a side. Like, are you white or are you black? Like, it's hard because like you said, I'm happy for you that you didn't necessarily experience it in a negative way, but that like my messages were very negative about being black, that like I need to go pick cotton and, you know, like just really mean things. And so the messages I was receiving was that any part of me that was black was what made me ugly. That like my curly hair, like my hair was way curlier back then, and it would get like very frizzy, and you know, that was something that like made me ugly. Like I wasn't like the other white girls with like the straight hair. And so then it was like I would spend literally 3.5 hours straightening my hair back then, trying to be like, okay, does this make me look pretty now?
Right. But that's your coping. So for me, like with Naya, my daughter, right now,
who's like the perfect little human ever. I love her.
Crazy curly hair. And whenever I'm combing her hair, she's always like, you know, I want it long. You know, and she's looking at her mom, who's got straight hair, and the majority of the girls in her school have straight hair. So already, she's only 3, she feels like, you know, I want that. It's not about race yet, but it's like everyone that I see's hair is this way, except for my dad's.
I do remember too, when I came over once and my hair was straight, and she did point it out, like she realized that my hair was different.
Yeah, and I try to tell her, like, you know, you have curly hair. Everyone who has straight hairs wants curly hair. And, you know, and you want what they don't have, you know, type of thing. But you did say something about, like, race not being negative. And I want to say that I think for me, the difference was, because there's definitely was negative aspects. But I grew up with my black family. Yeah. And I actually could see how black wasn't this negative thing. Yeah. I could see that it was, you know, there were stereotypes, some that are true, some that are not true. So I didn't have to rely on being told. Yeah,
and I didn't have any of that.
Right. So that for me is why it was important for me to stay in your life. So, you know, when you see like, oh, like, you know, these gangbangers, for instance, or these thugs, you know, the new thug guy, that you can always say, well, Rob isn't like that. Yeah. You know, so that to me is important, because it's very easy. I mean, you look at any movie, you look at TV other than the Cosby Show, which, you know, I had my issues with Cosby Show. But you know, we live in a society that being black does have so many negative things. And when you don't learn positive things through school and through family and hearing stories, you like, oh, this is a black guy. He calls me half nig. Maybe this is what they do amongst themselves. Yeah. They do it in the rap music, you know, so I'm cool and I like this guy, maybe. So I'm going to go with it. Yeah. You know, and then because you do it, now your white friends can say, oh, yeah, she's half nig. So you've given them permission. You know, and you're going to be like, all right, well, she's my friend, because that's as I say, for me, when I get older, I remember being with a coworker in the car and we were listening to hip hop music and he was just throwing nigger left and right. And I'm like, he's a superior. Do I say, like, you know, I wasn't okay with it. Yeah. And I didn't want to have the whole conversation of, well, you know, it's just music, it's art. You know, he say it. Why can he say it? Yeah. And I can't. You know, I'm a white guy. I have my privilege. Why can't I say the word that that my people invented? You know, I didn't want to even have this conversation. I regret now. I wish I would have. But I think as we go through life, we kind of have to find those ways to cope as you did. And it's not a wrong or right way. It's literally like, how do you get through the day? I know I sent you an article about Black people or people of color, not just Black, but Hispanics, and mental illness and the things that you go through life and having to come up with your own coping mechanisms and then get back out, go home, go to sleep, and go out and do it all over again, and how exhausting it could be. And there's no one really in the mental field that could handle like post-traumatic stress disorder pertaining to race, you know, type of thing. So I think, whatever, there is no wrong way. I will always tell people, if it works for you,
work it.
But I always, basically, to bring it home, I always wanted to be kind of that example for you that you didn't see as the negative. Not to say that hip hop is negative, it's an expression. But that there is, like, you have the Cosby aspect, which I'm definitely not. And you have the thuggery.
On two different ends of the spectrum.
And then hopefully I was thinking in there you would have Robb, who could be comfortable within those groups.
Yeah.
You know, type of
well,
thing.
and through just being yourself. And that's something I had Eric on last week. And we spoke about not even just looking beyond your race. Like, you may be Black or you may be biracial or whatever, but looking at yourself as just a human, like looking at yourself as a person and all the things that you bring to the table, not even because of your race or with an emphasis on your race, but that, you know, we can move towards a direction of looking at each other for just being the person that we are. And part of that, while it does include race, but that part is celebrated.
Right.
So I want to take a quick break to talk to you guys about Audible. Audiobooks are a great way to help you become a better you, whether you want to feel healthier, get motivated, or learn something new. Audible helps you to listen to more books by letting you switch seamlessly between devices, picking up exactly where you left off. Whether it's on your phone, through your car, from a tablet, or at home on an Amazon Echo, you can get through tons of books, hands and eyes free, while doing almost anything. Audible members get a credit every month good for any audiobook in our store, regardless of price. And unused credits roll over to the next month. If you didn't like your audiobook, you can exchange it with no questions asked. Plus, your books are yours to keep. Oh, that's my favorite. With Audible, you can go back and re-listen anytime, even if you cancel your membership. Start a 30-day trial and your first audiobook is free. Go to audible.com/Taylor or simply just text Taylor to the number 500-500. Again, that's Audible, AUDIBLE.com/Taylor, or quickly text the word Taylor to the number 500-500. My personal recommendation for a book on Audible is Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown. But back to the show.
Well, how do you be, I mean, I know what the answer is for me, but how do you be the person of color? Like for me, I just did my ancestry test as well, so it really broke it down for me. I've always seen myself as Black just because I feel that's what society sees. So I have to go through life, I think, preparing myself. I know who I am as an individual.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm a bunch of things. I'm a lot of things, a bouquet of just things. However, once I exit my door, I know that if I pass a cop or if I pass a lady with a purse, they see Black.
Yeah.
So I put my Black coat on.
And not even necessarily Black, because I can kind of relate to that in some way, but that they see not white.
Right.
Like I remember I was in a gas station in Pennsylvania during college, and these two white guys were in line behind me, and literally I turned around and they looked at me and they just said, "You're not white." And I was like, and these were like grown men. These weren't even like teenagers. Not that that would make it acceptable, but you know, these were like men in their 30s or 40s, and they just looked at me so like perplexed and were just like, "You're not white."
But you know what the beauty?
But yeah, they're seeing Black or some kind of color.
They're saying something. So even in the crazy thing, because, you know, I've lived in Puerto Rico, I've traveled all over the world.
Grew up in D.C.
And what I tell people a lot is, what I'm finding is, even when I tell people I'm Black, they're like, "No, you're not."
No,
so
that's exactly what I get.
So
no one believes me.
So it's kind of like, it's
And the other thing I think is important to share on this piece, because I think other girls who are biracial may have experienced the same things that are listening. When I share, I often get the question, what are you? Mm-hmm. What are you? And sometimes I'm like really sassy and I'm super annoyed by the question. And I'm like, I'm an American. Okay. I'm a person. Leave me alone. Mm-hmm. And other times I'm like, I can tell that they're just really curious actually. And they want to know what my background is. And, I'll say, yeah, like I'm half black, half white. And people are like, no, you're not.
Right.
No way.
Right.
No way. But then they'll say, but you're so pretty.
Right. And it's kind of like, okay, is the white part not pretty or is the black part not pretty? Yeah.
And that's where it's like this it's such a mind game where you're like, wait a second, like you wouldn't have expected my mix to be pretty. Why?
Right.
You wouldn't, or are you surprised that you're finding yourself attracted to me because you don't think that black is attractive, mm-hmm. or you've been given messages of where black isn't attractive or it's not beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that's where then, I start taking all those messages of like, wait, so if I want to be pretty, if I want to be attractive, then what does that mean? And, how do people actually respond to that? And it's then where there's also that kind of pressure to pick a side of like, right. Well, what am I? What do I say I am?
I stopped doing the work for them. When people are like, what are you? Mm-hmm. I always throw back, what do you think I am?
Yeah, I do that sometimes too.
And
no one ever guesses it.
Never. And I mean, I think I've been everything that mm-hmm. like, especially in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico is different because everyone is kind of mixed mm-hmm. Everyone's mixed. So I remember when I first got to Puerto Rico and people would be like, what are you? Yeah. And for them, what are you could also be like, where are you from? Mm-hmm. Not like, what are you, but like, where are you from, Panama? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
So race is there, but mm-hmm. it's not really the question like it is in the U.S. So
I think you can tell the difference between someone asking because they're curious and mm-hmm. like are like, oh, like what is your background? Or they're trying to figure out whether or not they should like you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like myself, so I don't need them to like mm-hmm. me. However, when, like when I was in Puerto Rico, they would be like, what are you? And I'd be like, black. They was like, no. Like if it was a negative thing, you're not black, you're triqueño. And I'm like, triqueño? I've never even heard this. Like, where is the land of triqueño? Mm-hmm. Like, what is that? And I was like, what is triqueño? And it's like, it's the color of the inside of the tree. So in my head, I'm like, oh, light skinned. Okay. Okay, whatever. All right. But I'm black and I want to be black. And they're like, no, you don't want to be black.
But they were even trying to like let you know that like,
absolutely.
no, like you're not bad. Like
right.
that black was innately a negative thing.
Like who would want to admit to that?
Mm-hmm.
Like who would, like if you had an opportunity not to be that.
Yeah.
Because I'm mm-hmm. giving you the opportunity to not be that. Why would
and
you
I've even
that?
Noticed sometimes when I do respond with it, like if it is someone I'm really excited to meet and I think he's like super hot, whatever, that I would always feel this like sense of like nervousness coming over me of like, oh, I'm about to tell him I'm part black. Like, I don't know how he's going to react to that. Like he's going to start seeing me in a different way now. Like he might not look at me for just who I am anymore. Mm-hmm. And that, you brought up the word light skinned.
Right. I mean, and you will get to the point if you're not there yet, where you just, the whole liking part,
mm-hmm.
I
think as an adolescent, as you're growing up and you're like trying to figure out, like I remember getting messages from a ton of girls when The Bachelor first started airing and, in my intro video, they mm-hmm. played up the part where I was like, I'm half black, half white. And mm-hmm. it's something I've struggled with and got so many messages from younger girls who are like in their teens and are trying to figure out like what it means to be biracial and how to, embrace that about themselves, how to love that about themselves and how to go about creating relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to me, I wish people would rephrase the question because I think, what does it mean? I wish it would be, what does it mean to you mm-hmm. to be biracial?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people will hear like, oh, well, Taylor's biracial. And I want to say people who live very simplistically, like, okay, this mixed girl said, this is what it's like. So she can now go to every other mixed girl mm-hmm. and tell them what it's
be
like.
Different for everyone.
Right. And I mean,
but I do want us to feel empowered in talking about it.
No,
and
absolutely.
I think like for me, it wasn't always something that I could be outspoken about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't something that I necessarily felt comfortable speaking on because there was so much like shame absorbed in what it means to be biracial or what it means to be Black.
Mm-hmm.
And even just to admit that part was also a super hard place to get to,
Mm-hmm.
because then it's like, oh, whoa, like I'm feeling shameful feelings about being Black because of the messages I've received from other people growing up. So then is that giving me a bias towards other Black people? And then it was like, even growing up trying to make friends with like the Black girls, like they didn't like me because I was part white, or would just say that I'm white in general.
Or they didn't like you because they're not you.
That part too, which then you feel super uncomfortable saying and
Right.
talking about.
But see, the shame starts before that. The shame
Yeah.
starts when you're in elementary school and they're talking about slavery.
Yes.
And then
When you're learning about how your country was made.
and as soon as they talk, you know, like I went to, like majority of my classroom was white people. So they talk about slavery. Then all the eyes come on to you and you're like, and then I remember this because my parents talked to me and educated me. And I remembered like, why are they looking at me as the slave instead of like looking within themselves of like, wow, our people were, you know, because, and I, you know, that's how privilege starts, you know, because they don't touch on that.
Now, did you listen to the privilege episode?
I listened to some of it and I it was very hard for me to take some. I don't want to touch on it because I feel like that conversation is going to come up, and I want to have the conversation with brother Colin.
Yes.
Colin is a great person, and he
you guys
put
get
himself,
along really well.
he put himself out there, which is hard, and especially at his, you know, where he is in his life, being a business owner, and I will respect him. And before I draw my own conclusions on what I think I might have heard, I want to bring it to him first. But on that piece of school, and he was just like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. And I was like, you never thought about, you know, like.
Well, I got a lot of comments from people, too, that were like, had the same realization that he had listening to it. And that were like, whoa, yeah, like that was a really good point. And
see, for Black people, we're like, really? You guys didn't think of that? And almost to the sense is like when people watch Get Out, it's kind of like when I talk to my white friends, we totally saw a different movie. I'm like, what movie were you watching? But it's because we start so early looking at our world so differently.
Yeah.
And I already knew before slavery that my ancestors didn't start as slaves. So I think it's James Baldwin. I actually just finished reading his book, I think like 2 weeks ago. And he was basically like, slavery is not where our history basically began. Yeah. It is the interruption of Black history. So for me,
it's a super good point, because you're never, for me personally, I was never really taught about Black history aside from slavery, that is where it started, you know?
But it really, like, it's, for me, it's a way for, we should talk about slavery. I feel like we should talk about it differently. Because to me, it's like,
what do you say to people who are like, you know, when the privilege episode came up, there were a lot of conversations and a lot of discussions that came up from that. And what do you say to the people that are like, privilege doesn't exist, or like slavery is over with, like you're only perpetuating racism by talking about slavery and by talking about privilege and reverse racism? And I mean, for you as a...
I always say from my opinion on it would be, you know, like, and once again, I'm not the spokesperson for the people of color.
But your personal thoughts on it.
My personal thoughts is there's a lot of people. I always kind of like to play devil's advocate. So there is white privilege, absolutely, but there's also man privilege as well. So when I talk to like my Black guy friends, or you know, like that don't really see it, how I'm like, how do you not see it? Or if I talk to white guys that don't really see it, I try to bring privilege differently, because when I think there's such this negative thing about like white privilege. If you admit to it, you're a racist, or you believe in the system, or you, and
well, and for a lot of people that I saw just the reaction to the word white privilege was very intense. And not even, I think that there's a big misunderstanding about what we actually are talking about when we refer to white privilege. So, you know, you said there's a white privilege and there's a male privilege. What would you say? I mean, also, like, I reflect a little bit being biracial of where I also have some white privilege, even being a person of color. But I mean, where do you define that white privilege, and where do you feel if there are ways of being, I mean, I don't know, being a biracial man, if there are parts of that you... I mean,
I would say being a person of color and being made up of different colors, the privilege, I think, starts out as you get a glimpse of different worlds. So when you have a cousin who could be Asian, let's say, you know, and you're around his family, they know you're a family, so they can speak freely, they can speak openly. And you will hear, and as alcohol is consumed, you will hear a lot of times, and a lot of things that you're like, oh, wow, like, okay, like, I thought you were my family, but now I see, okay, you still love me, right? And so you get a little glimpse of these different worlds. And for me, how it has helped me is that it kind of prepared me a little bit better for stepping out into the world and knowing that these people kind of have, you know, these views. And, you know, like, if my family or my best friends can have these views, this is how the world could probably have these views as well. Now, what is a male privilege as a person of color? I can go into any white neighborhood, and if there's a bunch of white guys playing basketball, I would probably, once they start forming teams, be the first picked.
Yeah.
That's a privilege. But you know, the embarrassing part of that, I'm the worst basketball player ever. And, you know, it's happened to me at schools, you know, like, they just, there's the stereotypes. There's a privilege, I would say a black male privilege that I think no women have if you're white or, to a certain extent. I can go for a jog any time of the day and not feel, you know, like anyone's going to harm me.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the cops. But if I'm in a place that I'm secure in or something like that, that's a privilege that I have that, you know, maybe like I don't feel like running around our neighborhood, let's say, for instance, I would feel fine running around my neighborhood. My wife might not. Colin might not feel as secure running down on the South End as he does in Queen Anne, let's say. So that's a privilege. I recognize that. However, I don't have the power to change that. Just like I don't have the power to make that woman think I'm not going to rob her.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I can do is kind of smile, but now that could backfire because I could be a creepy guy. So now I don't do that anymore. I just go through life and, you know, I go from point A to point B.
Well, what's interesting to me is even in that realization of the smiling piece is that you grew up essentially trying to overcompensate for this appearance and this image that you are a threat. And that I think is a piece of privilege that is throughout our system and is something that I think white people aren't necessarily aware of.
No, definitely not. I mean, I have to, when I go outside, you know, there was another piece. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it. This will be the last Colin piece I'll talk about. But the one that really like bothered me is when he said, you know, like when I go and look at my like employees that are potentially going to work for me, and I check out their Facebook page and their you know, if their pants are sagging, and then he said, you know, like I hired some of those people, they haven't robbed from me, great, but there was a piece in there that I was like, I remember another white friend of mine saying, you know, I don't know what it is with black people that buy things. They don't own a home, but they're buying these fancy cars and they're buying these fancy clothes. And I'm thinking, like, the reason why they buy these fancy clothes and stuff, for one, it makes them feel good. Like, yeah, I can rock a Versace shirt, but it also makes Colin feel good when he looks on his Facebook page and sees. So for me, it was like, it can backfire from both ends, you know. And then it was frustrating because I was like, I know if he went to one of his, you know, white coworker, like a white employee, and they had, because white guys sag as well, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. And then there was another piece in there, part of the dress, where he was like, you know, I realized people wasn't taking me seriously because I was, you know,
because of his
age and how he was dressed. So he went out and bought some nice suits, you know.
Well, and he had the ability to do that.
Right privilege. Because I've worn many suits. So it really is not about the suit. He was a white guy in a suit. That's a privilege. I can put on a suit, but you're still going to check my Facebook page. Yeah, you're still going to. I can't take that outfit off. I got to wear this. I mean, granted, they're just skin lightening. That's a whole nother topic. But I have to wear this costume. So, yes, I've been conditioned to go through life. How do I make this white lady feel comfortable in Georgetown when it's kind of like no one makes the black person comfortable?
Yeah, no one's considering if you're comfortable.
Yeah, because when I step outside, especially in somewhere like Georgetown, like I'm worried about someone thinking if I go in the store, someone thinking I might steal something. You know, jaywalking, because I have gotten in trouble. I think I'm the only person in D.C. that's gotten in trouble for jaywalking. But I feel like, you know, and like I remember telling the cop because I was angry, and you know, like I would say 99.9% of the time I've ever come into contact with police, I've been calm. There's probably been like 2 times because you know after you get pulled over, and the thing was like there were some white kids that ran across the street, and then I ran right behind them. We were jaywalking because that was his question. Were you jaywalking? And I was like, yeah, but so were they. And he was like, and he said, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about you. And I was thinking, like, is he worried about my safety? You know, I tried to, like, tell myself, like, oh, maybe he's a white cop that's worried about my safety.
Yeah.
But then as it progressed, I realized that it wasn't. So then I had to tell myself, like, that's another privilege. Like, I can't run a red light. I want to do everything possible not to get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, and that's the extra mile that I think we maybe missed over in the privilege episode where I think there's an extra mile that people of color have to go. And it's not to say that people of non-color don't work hard or that they don't, strive, because that's a big piece of tension there.
Right. I made a big boo-boo and read a lot of the comments. See, I normally don't read comments because I get drawn in. But when I was reading, there was one lady and she's like, my sons have worked hard to get where they are. And I'm thinking that no one has said I believe you. I know your sons.
And no one's taking that away from you.
Right.
And no one's saying that they didn't work hard enough.
Right. And they did work hard. And they deserve what they get.
Yep.
And if I was a white person, I would probably use every privilege that I could be afforded to use to get where I want to get. But when she says that, what she's also saying is those other people just want to they don't want to have to work hard to get. And as I was reading, I was like, does this lady live in America? Like, look who Barack Obama had to be to get elected, and look who Trump is. Trump says all the time he worked hard. You know, he worked hard. Maybe he did.
But had Obama been doing the same things that Trump is doing?
Well, not what he's doing, but to even get the job.
Yeah.
If Obama had 3 babies' mamas, he would have been shot down. So both of them worked hard.
Yeah.
But for the same job position, for the position of the job, Trump did not need as many qualifications as Barack Obama did. I mean, this guy went to Harvard. I mean, this guy was super educated.
Yeah.
So if he went to the same schools that Trump did, I don't think he would have been, you know, I don't know. But my personal opinion, I don't think so. So for me, to that lady who made that comment, your child, I know actually, let me take it away. Let me take it back, because I think maybe this might help people process. There are a lot of poor white people out there.
Yeah.
Lots. that work hard. Okay. The difference between a poor white and a poor black would be, and this is privilege, is there's no person that is poor because they're white. And if they can grasp that piece, I think it will help them, because you have poor whites, you have poor blacks. They're both working hard. But the poor whites, they're not poor because they're white.
Would you not say that they are white and poor because they were born into a white poor family?
They could have been. They could have fell on hard times. There's people that are wealthy that become poor. There are people that, there's so many. Like, I have a friend who lives in a small town who's brilliant. He's a coder. He can't find a job. Not because he's white. He can't find a job. And because he's thinking, like, I'm white. I'm white. Why can't I find a job?
Yeah.
There's black people working. What, why don't I have a job? And I'm thinking, well, first of all, the black people that are working aren't doing the jobs that you want to do. And second, it's choices. There are no coding jobs in your town.
Well, I think that's also what a lot of people think when they think of privilege. They think that, that it's an excuse for black people to not work hard.
Right. But, society, like, if I know as a black person, I can work my booty off and I can't be a doctor unless I do the work. There's no one out there that is underqualified getting a job. Nowhere. Because in HR, you can't go back and say, oh, I gave this black guy the job because he's black. He has none of the qualifications, but he's black. And then I'm sorry, Colin, I wanted to give you the benefit. But this speaks on that one piece as well, because he was like, which was a very important, to me, this was like, what he just said was so beautiful. And I didn't see any comments on it, but it really was the thing. And he said, as I talk to my friends, my PONCs, and with all this like affirmative action, once we get to equality, he said, what's going to happen to the white male? And I was thinking of that. Once we have true equality, the white male wouldn't have to worry. But what I really heard, and this is where I say I want to have that conversation with him, but what I really heard is once we get to the point where we're good, there was almost like a fear that the blacks or all the other minorities might treat them the way that this would be the whites. And I can tell him as a person of color, and by the statistic that you gave him during that talk, people of color are not that type of people. We are totally, and I can say I can speak. I can be the person I'm now the spokesperson.
Now you are the spokesperson.
and the reason why I can say that is not just a statistic that 50% of blacks would still prefer white. Not just because of that, because look at our history.
Yeah.
Of people that have been raped and beat, and that we have the system that beats us down, that we go to court and we're treated differently. We're treated differently. Just everyone knows it's not a secret.
But I think some people,
and I can still look at Colin and say, I want the best for you.
Yeah.
Because when Colin did that, when Colin first got on to the podcast, the first thing that I said to myself was, I hope he doesn't mess up his business. So I, as a black male, still want to see Colin succeed, not because he's a white person, but because he's a good person.
Yeah.
He has a good heart. So that's why I said, if we ever get to that point where equality is, we don't need it anymore, he does not have to worry.
Because hopefully when we are then getting to that point of equality, that, we are looking at each other as people.
No, I don't want that. I want you to, like you said, color brave. I want you to look at me and see a black person who's worked hard. I want that lady that wrote that comment to say, you know what, my son worked hard the black guy that works, everyone in that office worked their butts off. Mm-hmm. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm sure if there's a person of color in the office, he's probably had to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And I always tell people that don't really understand, here's my fix. Here's my prescription, if I was a doctor. My fix for people that don't believe in white privilege, get you some more black friends. Not just black, get you Hispanic friends. Get you some friends of color that can help you understand.
Yeah.
And for blacks and Hispanics that don't really, because they're out there, they don't understand white privilege, get you some more white friends so you can see.
Yeah, so you can see the differences.
Yeah, because I've gotten into restaurants. I'm going to use their privilege. My friends, I've gotten into restaurants, which I know.
Piggyback off that privilege.
If I would have gone to by myself, I probably wouldn't have gotten in. I've never gone back and seen or checked.
Well, so yeah, and I feel like being biracial and being that my ethnicity and race is very vague, that I'm able to take advantage of both of those different privileges. Correct.
But what you will find, the beauty, once you get outside the U.S., being biracial, because I've gone to different countries and they're like, once again, they're like, you're not black, you're American, And if you really don't believe it, like, when I get around my African friends, they're the first to let you are not African American. They're like, you are a black man. You are a black American. You are not African American. Yeah. Yes, you visit Africa, but you are not. And a lot of Africans are so proud, and they see African Americans as being mixed.
Yeah,
that we're an other to them. So but as you travel the world, it really isn't racism is everywhere, but it really isn't an issue as much as it is in this country. Like it's really, it's sad, but at the same time, it if you kind of know why it was created and why it makes sense, and two, we get to the level where we can talk about it and not be angry and have people like Colin come to the front, because like I said, I think I sent him a message, and Colin, if you're listening, I'm probably sure he didn't understand the message because there was so much going through my head, and I was just like, and I've never gotten that worked over a podcast or a Bachelor episode where I couldn't like force myself to like. I just wanted to let him know, like, thanks. Because he put himself, he might not realize he put himself out there.
Some people were a little upset that I had a white man talking about white privilege to start off Black History Month. And
I read that girl's comment. I don't know why it was always at the top. There were
multiple.
Well, I read the one girl, like, I think it's like crazy that it's white privilege using a white guy during Black History Month. And, as I always said to myself, like, this is the Taylor Nolan Let's Talk About It show, and I would approach her and say, you get your podcast and you pick, no, really, because you pick what you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, and I mean, my reasoning for doing that too was just that if we want to work towards a place where we are color brave and we are embracing the differences with our color, that right now where the lack of equality is still with white privilege. And if we want to try to even that out and move towards a place of equality, white privilege, I think, is something that needs to be acknowledged and needs to be made aware of. And I think having a white male who has that white privilege, that power of being a white man, talk about that is encouraging for other white men to talk about it. I mean, when you look at Congress, and if we want things to actually be changing, then these are things that people need to come forward and talk about and not feel shamed on and not feel like they need to be defensive and attacking each other. And that's kind of what I started to see develop in the comment section of just even the word white privilege was like this immediate defense coming up. And
that's actually, because we're not talking about it, it's good. Mm-hmm. Like, I looked at those comments and I was like, good. Like, people should be fired up. This is what should have happened.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to pause for a second and tell you about something I love, and that's FabFitFun. It's a seasonal subscription box that contains tons of different full-size beauty, fitness, fashion, and lifestyle products. And guys, the spring box is now available for only $49.99. It has a retail value of $350. This box has 7 self-care products for a relaxing night of pampering. One of my favorites is this massage roller. When I've got my very, very first box, it literally felt like Christmas. I was so excited, and I just could not wait to open the box and see what was inside. And then all the products that were inside were amazing. Even the ones that I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not. Tried it out. Loved it. Now, these FabFitFun spring boxes are in limited supply. These boxes always sell out. You can use my code TALK10 to get $10 off your first box. Go to fabfitfun.com to sign up and start getting the box for a life very well lived. Use promo code TALK10 to get $10 off your first box. That's over $350 for only $39.99. Go to fabfitfun.com and use my code TALK10 to get $10 off your first FabFitFun box. Now back to the show.
But to go back to that girl's comment, because all seriously, I was like half serious, but all seriousness, Black History Month in the U.S. should be a holiday that is inclusive of everyone. Mm-hmm. Because Black history is white history.
Yeah.
Black history is Asian history. And I'm going to tell a little funny story about Black history that I had with an Asian, one of my Asian coworkers. He's probably going to be listening to this and like, because he knows where I'm going. Okay. But anyway, I went up to him, and it was like February 2nd. And
this was this month?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what's up, man? Happy Black History Month. And he just looked at me and he was like, yeah. and he goes, Happy Black History Month to you. And I'm thinking like, no, this is your month too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go in further of the discussion. Last year, this guy came up to me, the same Asian guy came up to me and goes, Happy St. Patrick's Day. And he had on a green ribbon. Mm. So just in the holidays, in this country, Black History Month is still viewed as a
separate thing for
it's
you
for
to
them.
Enjoy.
Yeah, and this is Black history is so part of white history. It's so part of.
Well, and again, that's where I think that it's uncomfortable for white people to acknowledge the part that they have played in Black history.
Because it's not the story that we're taught. And this is part of the educational system, because what they've taught, was, blacks were sold by black slaves and we weren't bad people, only the rich people.
This is how we built our country.
Yeah. And it's, I don't think any black person is going to go up to a person on the street today and say like, your ancestor, but but we have to.
But I think that's a fear within white people.
It's a real fear. And if that's the fear, I think that's where they should come from. It's kind of like, I feel bad for Colin, because his fear is kind of legit. Mm-hmm. Because he might fear that I'm upset with him because of what his ancestors did.
Well, yeah, I think that's why people are scared to have the conversation in the first place, because they're scared that they're going to get blamed for things that their ancestors did, or that people of color are going to attack them based on their history.
Right. And then black people, because we come from a place where we already feel we get blamed. Like for me, it's like...
I feel like you're already tiptoeing and being as tentative and gentle as you can in the startup of it, because you know that it is such a touchy issue, and you're conditioned again to go through life smiling and trying to be as least threatening as possible.
Right. So why don't we start the discussion? I was having dinner with a friend about consent the other night, and she was like, as we were talking about like, how do we fix it? Where do we start the conversation? Where do we do this stuff? Where do we go? And she goes, we need to start from 99.9% of men have raped a female. It's not to make you feel bad, but we need to start from there. And like for me, who's never raped anyone, I had that fear that Colin would probably have going into the discussion, because I was like, I've never felt like I was like, I've never. And
you're like, that statistic can't be true.
Have you? And she was like, have you ever tried to persuade a person to have sex when they're like, no? Mm-hmm. That's where we start the conversation from there. And we have to, as uncomfortable as it is, as we have to start it from the real place. And for me, it wasn't that I didn't want to start the conversation. It was almost like I've never had the conversation with myself because I automatically went on the defense. Like, what? No, 99.9 no, because I didn't. And then as I
so when people hear white privilege and,
they go straight
racism,
to defense. Right. But I think once we are able to have the conversation with ourselves first, I think we can, but we have to start from the uncomfortableness of the issue, whatever the issue is.
Absolutely.
I love being Black or African American or whatever in the United States of America. Because I was thinking as I come in, like, what does Black history mean to me? And I remember years ago coming out with being, learning, affirming, culture, and knowledge. So if you take the Black, you're quick. So for me, like being and when you learn history and reading a lot of history of Black culture and so much stuff that is left out, there is such a rich culture to be proud of. Like, why anyone would feel ashamed is crazy to me. But then I know, like, our education system and Black, unless you go out and seek this information, you'll never know.
Well, and that's why I hope to encourage people to move closer to people of color and
people of color to move closer
to people of non-color.
Yeah, or Asians or Hispanics or because we're really all the same. And as you travel the world and you see people, we're all being of humans. And part of that is connections, and we're social people, and it's very important. And once we realize that the system, the reason, I mean, there's a great book, Stamped by Birth. I don't want to plug it, but it is but it's a phenomenal book. And I'm sure the people that read it will comment on it. But even slavery didn't start off by racism. It was economics. But in order to keep it going, they had to pit people against each other. And that's how you get to where you are. But in its design, it was all economics. And still to this day, as you go through life, like as a Black male, I know today that there are more Black men in jail than there were actual slaves. To me, still to this day lets me know that it's still economics because there's money in that.
Definitely.
But still, as a Black person, waking up every day knowing this, waking up every day knowing that I got to make white people comfortable in their country, and
your country too.
Yeah, right. But they see it as their country, not the Native American country, but their country. Waking up knowing that I got a daughter and now a son that might have to go through the same, like all that I have to even deal with before I step outside. Still lets me know that as a person of color, of people of color and Hispanics as well, especially in today's climate, to be able to walk out of the house and be pleasant to people and still want to bring people in and learn about people. And, people talk about Blacks having a chip on their shoulder sometimes. And I feel like there's days I have a bag. Like, it's never one chip. Like, there's days I have bags on and like, there's so much weight, and people of color don't really work on their mental health,
it's heavily stigmatized, and not as many resources and resources we touched on in the episode with Eric last week.
I haven't listened to that. I need to go back and listen. But with all that, still being able to get up and go outside is to me is such an amazing thing that I'm proud to call myself and be a part of, and will raise my children. Actually, I'm going to let them pick what they want to be as well, because society will, in a way, let you know.
It will.
And if you think you are one thing, society has a way of letting you know, no, you're not that as well. So just being secure in yourself and knowing the struggles of your culture, who you are as a woman, as a man, as a Black man, as a person of color, as a white man. We're all in the end are struggling. We're just need to get to the place where we can identify the struggle together, I guess.
What are things for you that you celebrate as identifying as a Black man, or what are things that, you want Naya or, future son to grow up celebrating about being Black?
The B is being. So for me, when I think of B, the being or being, actually, I don't like saying being because that's, to me, the action. For me, it's just be. So when I think of Black, be bold, be, and they have to be B words. So be bold, be beautiful, be brave. Like all the things.
Be vulnerable.
Well, vulnerable isn't a B, but yes. Yeah. But be vulnerable.
I thought we were being inclusive of all the letters of the alphabet.
Okay. Absolutely. Be vulnerable. And be centered. Like be in touch with yourself, have conversations. And then the L, learning. Continue to learn about your culture. And seek it, because you're not gonna get it anywhere else. Yeah. So you kind of have to be disciplined in that sense. And then affirming. So standing on that. Yes. Like I've came from slavery. Yes. Like standing
owning your story.
Yeah. Owning that, but no, that's not where, know that that's not where it started. It started before that. And where
know that
you
that's
are
not
today.
all that you are either.
Right. And don't let people, but affirm your truth of who you are. All those other things, beautiful and bold and vulnerable. And then our culture, and so much culture in the United States that I celebrate. Like for me, music is a big deal. And pretty much every white artist, let's think of like, let me throw one out there. Elvis. Huge. Elvis is huge. And everything, I would say 99.9% of the stuff that he took came from Black people. His biggest hit, Hound Dog, blew him to fame. Everyone loved the song. Big Mama Thornton was the actual person who wrote and sung the song that he took it from.
Didn't know that.
And actually, she would probably want to be known as the king of pop back then, because she definitely was a person to reckon with. But this is things in history. A lot of people want to talk about the culture like hip hop and rap. And I think the reason why the young people gravitate towards hip hop so much is because they see this is something that they created, like it's theirs, and they want to protect it, and they don't want other people to come in. And like I said, without knowing your history.
Yeah. Well, and I think even with music, that is one of the few areas of our society where you see Black men being successful. Music and sports.
Kind of. Because they're successful in it, but they're not more successful than the record labels. So
no,
for me,
I agree, but I think that's where people look to say that's Black culture, because that is what is in the forefront of what you're seeing of Black people.
Yeah, but we also have Black doctors. We have Black...
We do. But even literally just last night when I landed in the airport, I was walking into baggage claim, and there was this sign about, what was it for? I think it was like a ad for Comcast or something. I don't know. And it had this older white guy with white hair and in his suit. And it was a sign that said something about I trust this for my law firm. And then it was he was the owner of this law firm. And I just remember thinking, and I was like, okay, I am a person of color. And then I was thinking of myself as a young Black male. And I was walking around seeing this. And I'm why can't he be a different color? Why? Well, why? This is so, yes, absolutely. If I think owner of law firm, I think older white dude. And so it's yes, there are Black men who own law firms, but that's not more of what we see. That's not what's embraced or what's encouraged. And so I think to even learn more about your culture, it's about trying to put those things out there more in mainstream and in Congress and in politics and wherever else too, because I think what is most seen and what is most, celebrated society-wise of the Black community is music and sports.
Right.
That's something I talked about with Eric, about just seeing people that look like you in those positions of power to give you that strength and give you that even just knowledge that is something that you can do. And it's not something that I think people think about very often. And it's not something I think that people of non-color are really that aware of, because it's never been an issue for them.
Right. I mean, it's not that it's, I don't want to say it's not an issue it was never an issue for them, but it just seems so far away.
Yeah. And what's the K? What's the K?
Oh, sorry. Knowledge.
Okay.
And the responsibility for me as a person of color, when you have any knowledge, if you learn something, it's part of African culture that you pass down. Mm-hmm. So this goes back to our roots, that any knowledge, anything that you as a being, as a man, when you learn something, and women do it as well, you pass down what you know. Mm-hmm. That is your responsibility as a man. Everything that you know, you pass it down, not just to your children or to you. If you know something, you pass it down and you give everything you know, so that the person can take that knowledge and seek more, and then over time learn and get to a better place.
I like that. It's a great acronym for Black.
Thank you.
We'll have to create a little graphic for that. Is there anything else about Black History Month, or about being biracial, or about being Black that you feel is really important, or any resources that you want to make people aware of? Anything else that you feel like is important on this topic before we wrap up?
As a man of color and reading a couple articles, I realized that we're getting to a place that we need to be very mindful of our mental space, and being very cautious of, I think as people of color, not just men, women, especially Black women, that our burdens are heavy. Yeah. And I think historically we've relied on our girlfriends and our fathers and our mothers.
Black women carry a lot.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to a point where we need to seek professional, and don't be ashamed. I, for one, go to couples counseling. Mm-hmm. I'm not ashamed of it.
You're an individual too, don't you?
And I've done individual. And the first couple people I've gone to, wackadoos, but they could have been great for other people. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like dating. Mm-hmm. It really is like dating. You got to find someone.
That's what I compare it to too, but like without the sex romantic part.
Right. Yeah. If you're going that route, not good. But you get to a point where you're going to mesh with someone over time.
And don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't think that just because one person didn't work for you that no one else will.
Yeah. I've gone to probably 5 in my lifetime. Yeah. And I would say the last one that am with and been going to is probably the best that I've gone. And I'm 43. So you don't give up and don't hold so much in. I remember, sorry, sidetracking, but I was talking to a bunch of white guys about Black men being so aggressive and why they're so aggressive. And I told them, it's weird that we look at it differently, but I realized why. And I said, instead of you looking at it as being aggressive, look at it as being a defense mechanism. So I feel a lot of these young Black boys are carrying so much where they can't take on anymore. So if you go out and you puff yourself up. Yeah. And
that's bigger. Where anger and, aggression as a form of anger is really an umbrella emotion to all the other things.
As I say, like knowledge of Black men, when we notice those kids, I think those are the ones that are the super.
That you should move close to.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I feel like culturally that is, as the seed, culturally that is our responsibility to check in. Yeah. Check in. We don't need to fix anything. We just need the person to know, like, we were there. We get it. We understand.
And even if you weren't there, I want to understand.
Right. Yeah. True. Good point. So if I want to leave with anything, I think, you being a mental health professional and kind of the podcast running on that, I think if there's anything I want to step away or, what would make me feel good knowing is that if one Black being a woman or female hears this and goes out and seeks like, okay, yeah, I do feel like I'm carrying a lot. Yeah. If that one person goes out and contacts, tries to start work to getting a mental health professional, that to me would be a success. And I think that's kind of what this podcast is about. Mm-hmm. So, and I would say that would be the best Black History present that you could give to me and to yourself.
So if you want to give Robb a Black History Month present, You can go and start your journey with some mental health counseling, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
And feel free to leave that in a review and let us know on iTunes if you did go and do that, so that Rob knows that
I got my gifts.
He's got his gift.
And if you have any trouble seeking, because there's very few mental health counselors out there that can that specialize in like Black posts.
About 2%.
Yeah. But if you feel like you're having a hard time, I think you post psychology.
Psychologytoday.com.
And that's who actually I found my person, who is a person of color in Seattle, is through that site. And if you have any hard times or anything, that is you throw that up occasionally. And before I even knew Taylor was throwing that up, that's where I started. And I put in like race as being one of the searches, and she popped up. So
race is something you can filter for on psychologytoday.com. I did create a highlight on my Instagram for psychologytoday.com. So I had been getting a lot of messages from people about wanting to seek help and what's the link? You know, you posted a while ago, I don't remember it. So it's on my Instagram page at Taymoka, and a highlight, and you can swipe up and it'll take you right to Psychology Today, and you can filter for your preferences in finding a therapist. But thank you. I think that's a really good takeaway for everyone, even people of non-color.
Absolutely. And thank you as a woman of color for being one of those individuals, and keep doing what you're doing, and don't read into those comments, because remember, it's about them. A lot of those comments are about them, not about you. Yeah.
Well, important to remember when you go to comment something, think about what you're typing, and it might actually be more about you than who you're talking to.
Correct. That's true.
Yeah.
And I think I'll leave with have a happy Black History Month. But thanks, Taylor, for keeping this interesting. You're the second person I think I listened to on podcast. And you're the first person that got me to watch Bachelor. So
yeah, you're welcome for that. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening. You can leave me a review on iTunes, and you can also find the podcast on Instagram at Let's Talk About It _podcast. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you next time.